The global geopolitical landscape has been irrevocably altered. It's no longer just China. Now Russia and China have decisively merged their naval might in a bold display of power within Venezuelan waters. This action issues a direct and unmistakable challenge to the United States. This unprecedented military alignment, unfolding in what Washington traditionally considers its backyard, signals a critical inflection point. It represents a deliberate affront to American dominance and a clear indication that a major confrontation is on the horizon. The world watches with bated breath. Is the Caribbean about to become the flashpoint for a new global conflict? What began as a simmering bilateral tension has now escalated into a formidable tripartite coalition, poised to fundamentally reshape the international order. Intelligence assessments from the Pentagon, corroborated by NATO sources and advanced satellite imagery, confirm the presence of a joint Russian-Chinese fleet in the Western Atlantic. This combined force is operating in close concert with Venezuelan military units. This powerful naval contingent includes China's formidable Type 055 destroyers and Type 054A frigates, alongside, for the first time with such explicit presence in this crucial region, Russian Slava-class warships and Akula-class nuclear-powered attack submarines. This is far more than a mere show of force. It is an unambiguous declaration that Moscow and Beijing are resolute in safeguarding their strategic interests in Venezuela, regardless of the cost, even if it precipitates a direct clash with the U.S. Navy. In response, the U.S. Southern Command has escalated its alert status to DEFCON 2, a measure signifying a severe threat of war and demanding peak readiness. Naval and air assets are being rapidly deployed from key U.S. bases in Florida, Puerto Rico, and Guantanamo. With chilling precision and synchronized intent, the Kremlin and Zhongnanhai are testing the limits of Washington's patience in the enduring relevance of the Monroe Doctrine, cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy for over 2 centuries, which now faces its most profound and multifaceted challenge. This comprehensive analysis will not only chronicle these real-time developments, but will also meticulously dissect the intricate layers underlying this unparalleled crisis. We will explore how this audacious joint provocation was painstakingly engineered through decades of strategic alliances, significant infrastructure investments, and growing influence across Latin America, thereby transforming the region from a simple commodity supplier into a geopolitical battleground of global significance. Our investigation will delve into the economic, ideological, and strategic imperatives driving the boldness of Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, who perceive Venezuela as a pivotal opportunity to redraw the global order and contest unipolar hegemony. Crucially, we will assess the potentially devastating repercussions that a single misstep, be it a misunderstood warning shot, an accidental maritime collision, or an uncontrolled rhetorical escalation, could unleash upon global stability, carrying the very real prospect of armed conflict between nuclear-armed powers. Prepare to grasp the profound reasons why Russia and China are directly confronting the U.S. in Venezuela. This represents, in essence, the most audacious strategic maneuver on the vast geopolitical chessboard of the 21st century. It is a move that compels Washington into an existential decision, presenting an agonizing dilemma: either concede and accept the erosion of its undisputed supremacy in the Western Hemisphere, thereby setting a perilous precedent for other rising powers, or advance and risk a direct military confrontation with a formidable coalition of nuclear-armed adversaries, incurring immeasurable human and economic costs. Join us for this in-depth examination to decipher the complexities of this critical juncture, where diplomatic rhetoric has materialized into warships, and the echoes of a new Cold War resonate louder than ever, now amplified by a chorus of 3 powerful voices. The synchronized arrival of the Russian and Chinese naval forces in Venezuelan waters is not an isolated incident, but the culmination of a meticulously crafted strategy of power projection by both Moscow and Beijing. This bold maneuver constitutes a direct challenge to the Monroe Doctrine and Washington's long-standing sphere of influence, effectively transforming the Caribbean into a global flashpoint. The presence of cutting-edge naval assets from the People's Liberation Army Navy, Plan, and the Russian Navy in such close proximity to U.S. coastlines serves as a potent declaration of intent, compelling the U.S. to formulate an unprecedented response. According to detailed naval intelligence assessments and reports from authoritative specialized publications, The combined task force incorporates pivotal elements from the blue water fleets of both nations. Confirmed sightings include at least 2 Chinese Type 055 guided missile destroyers, renowned for their superior surface warfare and anti-air capabilities. These are complemented by Chinese Type 054A frigates, observed to possess advanced anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The inclusion of a Type 075 amphibious assault ship further suggests a capacity for projecting ground forces or executing large-scale logistical support operations, thereby significantly elevating the overall threat level. The element of novelty and the primary escalation factor are introduced by the Russian fleet. Confirmed assets include a guided missile cruiser, a Slava-class vessel equipped with formidable firepower, including anti-ship cruise missiles. Accompanying this, Gorshkov-class frigates armed with caliber missiles have been detected. However, the most profound concern for the Pentagon stems from the confirmed operation of Akula-class nuclear-powered attack submarines in the region. These submarines, celebrated for their extreme stealth and lethal precision, pose a silent and elusive threat, capable of dramatically altering the balance of power in any naval engagement. This unprecedented convergence of military might, featuring advanced technology from 2 nuclear powers, unequivocally demonstrates their collective resolve to challenge U.S. hegemony in its own perceived backyard. The United States' reaction was characterized by an unparalleled level of gravity. The U.S. Southern Command, headquartered in Doral, Florida, promptly elevated its alert status to DEFCON 2. This measure signifies a severe and imminent threat of war, necessitating maximum preparedness across all military branches. Pentagon sources confirmed the rapid mobilization of Carrier Strike Group 8, spearheaded by an immense nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, a colossal platform for power projection. This formidable group comprises at least 1 Ticonderoga-class cruiser and a squadron of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Furthermore, the presence of Virginia-class fast attack submarines has been verified, operating covertly in the region to monitor and, if required, neutralize any submarine threats posed by the coalition. Southcom's official communiqué, while maintaining a tone of ensuring security and freedom of navigation, delivered an unambiguous warning. Any foreign state actor attempting to destabilize the region and support illicit regimes will face a firm and forceful response, utilizing every tool at our disposal. This declaration left no doubt that Washington would not passively accept the combined military presence as a fait accompli. The escalating tension in the Caribbean transcended mere geopolitics. It was a raw demonstration of power, with the world's 3 most potent navies on a potential collision course, raising the stakes to an imminent naval confrontation with profound global ramifications. For the Venezuelan government, the arrival of the Russian and Chinese fleets represented both a political lifeline and a powerful reassertion of its defiant posture, now bolstered by unprecedented military backing. Nicolás Maduro publicly expressed his gratitude to the governments of Russia and China, proclaiming, "Russia and China are our elder brothers, our strategic allies with whom we will forge the multipolar future and justice for the peoples of the world." This meticulously choreographed moment was immediately broadcast during prime time by state television networks in China and Russia, presented as a symbol of the unbreakable alliance among the 3 nations against the imperialist and hegemonic aggression of the U.S. and its Western allies. This narrative not only bolstered the internal legitimacy of Maduro's regime but also projected an image of Russia and China as responsible global superpowers prepared to directly challenge Western power to defend their allies and champion a new paradigm of global governance. Analysts observed that despite their seemingly symbolic nature, Maduro's gestures are underpinned by a serious military political strategy. By overtly positioning themselves in Venezuela's defense, Russia and China are sending an unequivocal message to the world. Their spheres of influence are no longer confined to their immediate regions, and they are prepared to provoke the U.S. on its own territory, now in a coordinated and formidable manner. In direct response to the escalating U.S. military presence, Venezuela announced extensive military exercises, dubbed Bolivarian Shield 2026, to be conducted on La Orchila Island, in Sucre State, and along the eastern coast. These maneuvers, which included active participation from units of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces and the integration of Russian and Chinese-sourced air defense systems were presented as a clear demonstration of defensive capabilities and a stern warning that the nation would not be an easy target. The atmospheric tension was almost palpable, as the world watched with apprehension, acutely aware that any miscalculation could transform this rhetorical and military escalation into a conflict of unforeseeable proportions. With each vessel drawing nearer, with each increasingly sharp declaration, the Caribbean was morphing into a complex chessboard where every move was calculated. Yet the ultimate consequences remained profoundly uncertain. In this volatile scenario, the combined Russian-Chinese presence had entirely reshaped the game's dynamics, compelling the U.S. to meticulously reevaluate every step in the face of an imminent naval confrontation with global implications. The decision by Russia and China to orchestrate a joint naval deployment in Venezuela is far from an impulsive act. Rather, it is a clear manifestation of their shared ambition to directly challenge U.S. hegemony and fundamentally reconfigure the world order. This strategic maneuver, which overtly defies the Monroe Doctrine and Washington's long-established sphere of influence, signals a decisive new phase in the foreign policy doctrines of both Moscow and Beijing. Here, the principle of non-intervention yields to an assertive military presence in regions deemed vital for their respective interests, serving to rigorously test the boundaries of U.S. global primacy. The Russian-Chinese provocation in Venezuela is multifaceted, deeply embedded within their long-term strategic objectives. A high-ranking official from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs asserted that the naval presence aims to safeguard the legitimate interests of our allies in the region and ensure global stability against external interference. Concurrently, a spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated that the joint operation represents an exercise in strategic cooperation for peace and security, conducted in strict adherence to international law. However, numerous analysts contend that the primary impetus behind this action is the protection of substantial investments and securing access to critical strategic resources, coupled with an overarching desire to project power and directly challenge Washington. Over the past 2 decades, China has poured over $60 billion into Venezuela, predominantly in oil and gas ventures, alongside financing crucial infrastructure and telecommunications networks. Russia, for its part, has served as a pivotal supplier of advanced weaponry and military technology to Venezuela, with agreements surpassing $11 billion. Moscow has also maintained a sporadic military footprint in the region, including long-range strategic bomber flights and naval port calls. These investments transcend mere financial transactions. They constitute a fundamental pillar for China's energy security, the expansion of its global footprint, and Russia's capacity to project its influence far beyond its immediate borders. Venezuela, possessing the world's largest proven oil reserves and a highly strategic geographical position, stands as an invaluable partner for both powers, guaranteeing the supply of vital resources and solidifying their presence in a region historically dominated by the United States. The combined military presence also delivers an unequivocal message to Washington. The era of uncontested U.S. primacy in the Western Hemisphere is now under severe threat. Moscow and Beijing are actively pursuing the establishment of a multipolar order, wherein their economic and military influence extends globally, directly contesting the existing unipolar framework. This profound paradigm shift indicates that both powers are transitioning from a predominantly regional defense posture to one of coordinated global expansion. Venezuela, with its immense oil wealth and strategic location, thus transforms into an epicenter of this evolving strategy, serving as a critical launchpad for Russian and Chinese power projection into the United States' traditional backyard. This joint audacity not only fundamentally reconfigures the regional balance of power, but also raises profound questions regarding the future of global geopolitics and the very real prospect of a new Cold War, characterized by unexpected flashpoints and the imminent threat of a naval confrontation of catastrophic proportions. In Caracas, the arrival of Russian and Chinese support was met with palpable jubilation and profound relief. Nicolas Maduro publicly extended his gratitude to the governments of Russia and China, declaring, "Russia and China are our elder brothers, our strategic allies with whom we will collectively build the multipolar future and justice for the peoples of the world. This meticulously choreographed moment was immediately broadcast during prime time across state television networks in China and Russia. It was presented as a powerful symbol of the unbreakable alliance among the three nations, united against the imperialist and hegemonic aggression of the US and its Western allies. This narrative not only served to bolster the internal legitimacy of Maduro's regime, but also projected an image of Russia and China as responsible global superpowers, unequivocally prepared to directly confront Western power to defend their allies and champion a new model of global governance. Analysts observe that while Maduro's public gestures might appear largely symbolic, they are underpinned by a serious military-political strategy. By openly positioning themselves in Venezuela's defense, Russia and China are conveying a clear message to the world. Their spheres of influence are no longer circumscribed by their immediate regions, and they are fully prepared to provoke the US on its own sovereign territory, now acting in a formidable and coordinated manner. In Washington, the sudden incursion of the Russian and Chinese fleets into the Caribbean was met not with indifference, but with an escalating wave of alarm that reverberated throughout the corridors of power. The Pentagon, in particular, observed this deployment with profound apprehension, recognizing it as a blatant violation of the Monroe Doctrine and a direct challenge to the very fabric of US national security. The pressing question that hung over the Capitol was stark: how to effectively respond to this audacious provocation without inadvertently triggering a... Sources within the National Security Council revealed that, in private discussions, the US administration meticulously weighed scenarios ranging from a limited naval blockade to a more aggressive interception. However, national security advisors reportedly issued grave warnings regarding the potentially catastrophic consequences should even a single Russian or Chinese warship sustain damage. The haunting specter of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis loomed large, serving as a stark reminder of the alarming speed with which a regional crisis can spiral into a global confrontation with nuclear implications. The sheer audacity of Moscow and Beijing, demonstrating for the first time in their history a willingness to challenge Washington not solely for their own immediate interests, but in coordinated defense of a distant nation in another hemisphere, was a development previously deemed inconceivable. This profound paradigm shift unmistakably signals that both powers are transitioning from a predominantly regional defense posture to one of assertive global expansion, with the palpable threat of an imminent naval confrontation. Simultaneously, the crisis sent ripples through other global capitals, exposing deep-seated divisions. Within NATO, the debate raged with unprecedented intensity and fragmentation. In the hallowed halls of Brussels, Allied nations failed to achieve a consensus on a unified response. The United Kingdom, Poland, and the Baltic states, staunchly aligned with a more resolute US stance, adamantly insisted on the necessity of a collective response should a confrontation with the Russian-Chinese coalition materialize. Conversely, Germany, France, and Italy adopted an even more circumspect approach. A source from the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs reportedly stated that Berlin considered it suicidal madness to engage in conflict with Russia and China over Venezuela. Paris, for its part, proposed an urgent diplomatic mission aimed at mediating between Washington, Moscow, and Beijing, seeking a resolution that would avert military escalation. This pronounced division within NATO underscored the inherent complexity of the situation and the palpable reluctance of certain European powers to become embroiled in a direct confrontation with two nuclear-armed adversaries over an issue they perceived as distant from their immediate interests and carrying an existential risk. Across Latin America, opinions were similarly polarized, yet the overt Russian presence introduced an entirely new layer of complexity. Cuba, Nicaragua, and Bolivia officially declared their unconditional support for Venezuela and the visible presence of the Russian and Chinese navies, thereby strengthening their ties with Caracas, Moscow, and Beijing. In contrast, nations such as Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico issued cautiously worded statements, advocating for de-escalation and diplomatic dialogue, deliberately avoiding explicit partisanship, but expressing growing apprehension regarding the region's escalating militarization. The Organization of American States, for its part, issued a condemnation of external interference in the region, a clear, albeit indirect, allusion to Russia and China, without explicitly naming the US. This highlights the inherent difficulty in achieving regional consensus and the pervasive paralysis in the face of such a monumental threat. This international fragmentation vividly illustrates the intricate nature of the new multipolar order, where loyalties and national interest intersect in profoundly unpredictable ways, particularly when confronted by such a direct and overwhelmingly powerful joint provocation. At the very nexus of this intricate web of geopolitical and military interests, Venezuela finds itself in a precarious position of extreme vulnerability, yet paradoxically also of unexpected centrality. The nation, already wrestling with a profound internal crisis, has now become the undeniable epicenter of a dispute that is actively redefining the very concepts of sovereignty and the global balance of power. The conspicuous presence of the Russian and Chinese fleets in its territorial waters is not merely an act of support. It is a potent catalyst for the emergence of a new world order. In this evolving landscape, the Caribbean is no longer an American lake, but is rapidly transforming into a fiercely contested sea, subjected to the unprecedented triple provocation emanating from Moscow, Beijing, and Caracas. For the government led by Nicolas Maduro, this combined naval deployment serves as a powerful reaffirmation of Venezuelan sovereignty against persistent U.S. pressure. However, this ostensible assistance undeniably comes with a significant cost. Analysts at the Atlantic Council issue stark warnings that Venezuela faces a grave risk of being instrumentalized by both Russia and China, thereby becoming a mere pawn in a far grander global power chess match. The nation's existing economic reliance on Beijing and its military dependence on Moscow, now explicitly unified, could further erode Caracas's already fragile autonomy, effectively transforming it into a de facto client state with severely diminished capacity for independent decision-making. The expanded Russian and Chinese presence also raises critical questions concerning the future of regional security. What precisely are the implications for neighboring nations such as Colombia, Brazil, or the various Caribbean states? The escalating militarization of the Caribbean by external powers possesses the potential to destabilize an already fragile region, significantly increasing the risk of unforeseen incidents and the proliferation of advanced weaponry. The Monroe Doctrine, despite its historical criticisms, offered a degree of predictability. Its audacious and open challenge by Russia and China now ushers in an era of profound uncertainty and heightened potential for conflict, marked by an imminent naval confrontation and consequences that defy easy prediction. The trajectory of the Caribbean and the broader global hegemony remains deeply uncertain. Should Russia and China successfully establish a permanent and meticulously coordinated military presence in Venezuela, this development would fundamentally alter the balance of power across the entire Western Hemisphere. Such an outcome would signify a monumental strategic victory for both Moscow and Beijing, solidifying their status as bona fide global superpowers demonstrably capable of projecting power into any corner of the planet. For the United States, this would constitute a historic and undeniable setback, compelling it to undertake a radical reevaluation of its defense strategy and its long-held role as the primary guarantor of regional security, all in the face of this unprecedented joint provocation and the looming specter of conflict. Venezuela's current dilemma serves as a poignant microcosm of the larger global predicament: how smaller nations can effectively navigate a world increasingly dominated by superpowers, particularly when their strategic geographical location and abundant natural resources become the fiercely contested focal point of a major geopolitical dispute. The arrival of the Russian and Chinese fleets transcends mere support for Venezuela. It fundamentally concerns the principles of sovereignty, self-determination, and the inherent right of any nation to control its own destiny within an increasingly polarized global arena. It is the unmistakable sound of the drums of a new Cold War, resonating loudly across the warm waters of the Caribbean, carrying consequences that we are as yet unable to fully fathom, and portending an imminent naval confrontation of potentially catastrophic proportions. The joint provocation orchestrated by Russia and China, marked by the deployment of their warships to Venezuela in direct defiance of the U.S., represents an undeniable watershed moment in contemporary history. What was once primarily a competition for spheres of influence has now unequivocally escalated into a direct confrontation of wills and military might. further complicated by the inclusion of a third significant actor. The Caribbean, traditionally a stage for U.S. naval exercises, has rapidly transformed into the new epicenter of a struggle for global hegemony, where three superpowers now stand eye to eye, with the entire world collectively holding its breath in anticipation of an imminent naval confrontation. This escalating situation is not an isolated incident. Rather, it is a clear symptom of a profound tectonic shift occurring within the global order. Russia and China, propelled by their burgeoning military and economic capabilities, are no longer content with merely playing a regional role. They are actively seeking to challenge U.S. primacy across all fronts, including what Washington has long considered its exclusive backyard. The sheer audacity displayed by Moscow and Beijing in Venezuela serves as a potent declaration that no region is beyond their strategic reach, and that they are fully prepared to undertake calculated risks to fundamentally redefine the global balance of power. The implications of this escalating confrontation are both vast and far-reaching. For Venezuela, it signifies an increased risk of instrumentalization and an ever more compromised national sovereignty. For Latin America, it portends the militarization of its region and the mounting pressure to align with one side or another in what is rapidly becoming a new, multipolar Cold War. For the world at large, it serves as undeniable confirmation that the era of unipolarity has drawn to a close, and that direct confrontation between major powers is now a tangible reality. With potential flashpoints emerging in previously unexpected locations, the future remains inherently uncertain. Yet one truth stands unequivocally clear. The geopolitical chessboard has been irrevocably altered. The conspicuous presence of Russian and Chinese warships in the Caribbean serves as a somber and potent reminder that global peace now hangs by an extremely fragile thread, and that every strategic move, every critical decision, carries the potential for catastrophic repercussions. Humanity has undeniably entered a new and perilous phase, where a single misstep in the Caribbean could tragically lead to an unimaginable global catastrophe. To fully comprehend the intricate next moves in this deadly chess game and their profound impact on the future of the global economy and peace, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications.